Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. BrightWord is a leading platform for diverse storytelling, where voices from all backgrounds can share their unique narratives and connect with readers from around the world. Follow our regular podcast updates, where we strive to foster a literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature. Hello, and welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. I'm John Lobb, and I'm honored to be joined by a return guest today, Pastor Eduardo Advincula, author of King Jesus Christ's Nursing Assistant, My Life's Story as a Caregiver. The book is a reflective memoir that delves into the experiences of a certified nursing assistant, or CNA, on the front lines during the COVID-19 pandemic. Eduardo recounts the challenges of working in an overburdened healthcare system, where limited staffing and rising patient needs intensified caregiving's physical and emotional demands. Amid these hardships, the narrative explores themes of resilience, empathy, and spiritual dedication, revealing caregiving to be both a vocation and a ministry. Eduardo, welcome to the podcast. We're so glad to have you with us again.
Yes. Good morning, John. Thank you for this podcast interview again for the second time. And I'm greeting everyone. Good morning to you. I'm from San Jose, California, and I'm a pastor and the author of the book. And it's my honor. I'm deeply, full of gratefulness because, again, I've been given the opportunity to share with you about my book and what I went through during those dark days of COVID.
Absolutely. And before we start, Eduardo, let me just say thank you on behalf of all of us for your service during COVID. That was a scary time for many people. And I know that we saw in the news about nurses and doctors being on the front lines where we just all didn't know how big and how bad it was going to be. And we were relying on people like you showing up and taking care of patients no matter what. So thank you so much for everything you did.
You're welcome, John. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank my King Jesus Christ for sparing my life during those days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Eduardo, since you were last with us, have you received any additional feedback from readers that struck you as particularly significant?
Yes, John, as far as my the new feedback is concerned during my first appearance on podcast, I felt totally humbled by the reviews I read and the calls I received from my family members and friends as well as my coworkers. They said they were likewise blessed by the interview we did the first time. I did the first one with Chris, and that a number of them told me that they have already ordered the book. And for that, I would like to give the glory, the honor, and the pleasure again to my King Jesus Christ, to the Divine One, whose name being the title of my book itself, King Jesus Christ, Nursing Assistant, is my main mission why I wrote this book. And a lot of them told me that my life story is unique, doing a wholly different job back in the Philippines as a military intelligence officer, a Philippine government intelligence infiltrator, tracking down terrorists back in Manila and communist rebels, killing policemen, those enemies of the state, so called, fighting the Philippine government, and now becoming a simple certified nursing assistant. And my reply to them is so simple as well. I said to them, I could have been busted and killed back in those days and years that I was doing my intelligence work as a military special agent. King Jesus Christ spared my life. And I finally realized that making and being a nursing assistant would be the best fulfillment in my life after all those years. Thank you, John.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Boy, what a background you have. It's just amazing. Just amazing. And it's obviously a personal journey that you've been on, Eduardo. How did going public with your feelings and the partnership that you have with Jesus Christ, how did going public about that present new opportunities for you or even challenges?
Yes, John, as far as unexpected opportunities, yes, John. As a matter of fact, right after my first interview on podcast with Chris, I started receiving calls from other production companies telling me that they could convert my life story into a movie format. If I'm not mistaken, there were 3 or 4 book publishing companies from different states here in the US, from Michigan, Nevada, Florida, and Georgia, aside from California, who also read my book, they said, and manifested to me that their desire to promote my book is still there. And I said, why not? So we have established an agreement, and one company sent me all the documents for me to sign in. And they have been promoting my book as we speak. And part of our agreement is for them to include my book in the Manila Philippine International Book Festival this coming September. And also part of the contract is for them to promote my book in Frankfurt, Germany, for another international book festival. And so I agreed, and my profound gratitude again to my King Jesus Christ for giving me this opportunity. And John, there's another call that I received yesterday from Vancouver, Canada, and where they would facilitate. That's what they indicated to me. They would like to facilitate my book into a movie, but we have not yet closed any agreement yet. But prior to my first interview on podcast, there's one independent film production where we have already started doing some filming samples, but it's not finished yet, John. It's a documentary movie where I would take the lead role and they would extract portions of the scenes from the chapters of my book, like when I worked as a Philippine military special agent, where I worked with some Filipino politicians and a Philippine ambassador that I served also, and so forth. So that's basically the trend I would like to put up to that future movie, and thank God, again, my main mission is the name King Jesus Christ to be projected there, not my name but His name, John.
What a background. What a background, Eduardo. To go from special agent to certified nursing assistant to maybe movie star. What an amazing journey.
It's God's
That's
perfect timing.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Has the book changed your life personally, Eduardo, in terms of your faith or your day-to-day living?
Yeah. Yes, John. After my book has been published, I have become all the more sensitive to the people's needs, especially with my patients as a caregiver. I work 4 days a week, 8 hours a day. Back before the COVID, the season, I was working 16 hours. And during the COVID, I was still working 16 hours. And, seeing my patients going through so much pains emotionally, physically, and spiritually, it makes me all the more prayerful, John. And in many moments, I was silently, and I am silently communicating with my divine creator. Although I am beginning to receive some accolades and reviews, good reviews, but I always declare to those giving me the praises to instead interject our conversation by telling them that if not for King Jesus Christ, I wouldn't be here. So, in other words, John, when they try to give me praises, I always try to convert that into just give the praises to the one who saved my life and to the one that you worship as well. I feel more humbled by it than just receiving the accolades by myself because I don't deserve this. If not for King Jesus Christ, I wouldn't be here. So I always tell them too as well that I'm not saying this because I'm a perfect person or very religious. I was never born perfect, John. I've never been perfect. I'm never perfect. And never, for as long as I live, will I ever be perfect. I'm
And
still
I think
living.
all of us can say the same, that
Yeah.
none of us is perfect.
I'm still living just because of God's amazing grace. I'm still alive because of God's amazing grace. And being a caregiver, John, I intend to do this even when I'm already retired and be of service still to our community. That's my ministry as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I know some of the readers have called your book both inspiring and healing. Can you talk a little bit about what you've heard from them about those impressions?
Yes, John, some of my coworkers in the hospital, my fellow church members, even my fellow pastors who purchased my book, talked to me personally and by phone, sharing with me what they felt after reading my book and even watching the first podcast interview I had with Chris. They said they became more energized in doing more ministries for the Lord. And some of them professed to me that they are recommending my book to their family members and friends who I have not met personally, John, yet. And it's like they became my instant promoters. And thank God, they were doing the legwork as well and the verbal promotion. And it's overwhelming. And I always have this gratitude to the one who saved my life, and that's KJC, King Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Since the pandemic, since COVID has faded a little bit from our consciousness, has the role of caregivers changed? Or do you think the pandemic changed that role?
Well, John, for as long as the world turns, the challenges in the healthcare industry will always remain extremely colossal or extensive, if I may say so. After the COVID pandemic, as we talk about what changed my role as a caregiver, I would say that I have become enormously cautious, insightful, and perceptive. We will never know, what kind of pandemic will hit humanity again in the future. Well, these days, people with mental issues are becoming rampant, not only in my hospital that I work in, but I believe it's in every healthcare setting now. And that's very alarming. Those are some of the challenges post pandemic that we have been facing right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I myself was in for an outpatient procedure last week, and I so appreciated the care of the nurse and nursing assistants, even though I was just in a facility for a couple of hours for a procedure. They really made me feel like they were professional, they knew what they were doing, and they were friendly, and it made all the difference for me. If you could add a chapter to the book now that it's been published, do you think of like anything you'd want to add? Anything additional?
Yeah, John, there's that portion, a chapter in my book, when back in the Philippines, when I was doing some intelligence work, I was driving in the heart of Manila, tracking down the communist rebels disguising themselves as regular citizens and some Muslim terrorists, they were really infiltrating the community. And there was a traffic there right in the heart of Manila. And on my side, I mentioned this in my book, it's called the Philippine General Hospital. And so the traffic was still there. And I look on my right side and I saw a lot of ambulances unloading gurneys after gurneys of patients. And I would hear so loud the voices of the family members begging the doctors to save their fathers, their mothers, their uncles, their sons, their daughters. And I look at them, for a while, and then the green light went on. But that particular moment left a deep imprint in me when I got home. So after my work, I went back to the office, did my report, and then I went back home. But that night, I could not sleep, John. I just couldn't sleep anymore. So the whole night I was awake thinking about that incident. And I went back to work, continued my intelligence mission. And lo and behold, this would be my profession. It's like there was a seed God was preparing me, implanted in my heart and my mind that He said, "You may not understand this, you may ignore it for a while, but I am the God that you serve. I will make it happen for you." And it did. And sometimes I would also think about all those rebels, communist rebels and terrorists killed by our operatives after I would make the report. And some of them would be apprehended, were apprehended as a matter of fact. But there's this feeling in me where if there's a way they can be re-indoctrinated to becoming good citizens instead of fighting the government. But that didn't happen because I was told to focus more on my mission solidly. But at the back of my mind, it was already starting for me to take note of the fact that these people also have souls. These people have conscience. These people are just misled. These people are just brainwashed. But there must be something we could do. Those were lingering in my mind, but since I
They're
was
all
hoping,
human beings, in other words. They're all
yeah,
human beings.
they're still human beings. So they need to know really what love is, what compassion is, what kindness is, instead of having this hatred and vindictiveness and so on and so forth. So that's the part of the book. Maybe I would like to, if I'm going to be rewriting a book or write again, I would like to add that portion where, as a government intelligence infiltrator, I still have this conscience for them. Instead of finding them being killed in the battlefield or fighting the government and our operatives would be shutting them down. It's really part of the work, but at the same time, I know all of us will be going to that direction as well anyway. It's just a matter of time. Unfortunately for them, they chose the wrong path of history and they had to suffer the consequences.
So when you talk about caregiving being a ministry, it sounds like caregiving is more than just healthcare for you. It's a way of life, and it's a way of serving your Lord and serving other people. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, when times of living out that ministry now, in moments when my faith is being tested, I just keep on thinking about my recent heart attack, John, on March 31st of this year. I was on the fourth floor of our hospital, and I was taking care of my patients. I had one-on-one patient at that time because my patient had mental disorder. Then I timed it actually. Between 1 to 3 minutes, I thought it was just a heartburn, so I kept jabbing my chest. Then after taking the vitals of my patients, her blood pressure, her temperature, her oxygen level, cleaning her room, organizing it. From after 3 minutes, it went all the way to 4 and 5 minutes. I was documenting on my computer, on the computer, everything that I did. Then suddenly, the heart burn became so severe it radiated in my back, and I was having cold sweats. Then I could hardly breathe, and then I had to stop. I had to call my assistant manager. I said, "I'm not feeling good anymore. I need to go to the emergency room right now." I could sense it was already a heart attack, and it was a heart attack. I
Wow.
was near that death experience. And the doctor told me after the EKG, she came back to me in the ER and she said, "You are having heart attack right now." Another doctor came in. She asked me, "How long did it take for you to realize it's a major heart attack?" I said, "Around 5 minutes." And she said, "Good, because had you ignored it, three things would have happened to you. Either you would have had a stroke, you would have been paralyzed, or worst case scenario, you would have been found dead in the room. And the only time people would know, my fellow workers, my manager would know I was dead, when the nurse of that patient would come inside the room and me lying on the floor, dead already." And
Thank God you're okay.
yeah, and the latest report, medical report from my cardiologist, I'm so happy, I'm so blessed because the third echocardiogram procedure turned out to be negative now. I don't have any more blood clot in my artery, coronary artery. But he told me to keep watching my diet and keep on exercising and don't be overwhelmed by stress anymore.
Good advice for all of us, I think. Keep the stress under control
Yeah,
and watch our weight and watch what we eat. Eat
yeah,
healthy.
yeah.
So, well, thank God you're okay, man. Have there been recent experiences where you felt God's presence guiding your caregiving work?
Yes, John, I have a lot of experiences to share where God's presence was guiding my caregiving work in a profound way. You know, part of my job as a caregiver, John, as a certified nursing assistant, we have this so-called paddle sitter. That sitter means you have to be one-on-one with a patient for 8 hours. And there were times when I would be given a patient that has dementia, very strong, very tall, very combative, verbally abusive, and physically aggressive. And there was that moment, that particular day when I had him, he was 6'5" tall, very tall. I'm only 5'6", he's 6'5". He was kicking the bed rail. He was cursing everyone. He was even cursing me. And then I had to call the security. He was cursing the security. He was punching the security. And he grabbed my scrub like this to the point where it got torn apart. I had to stay away from him, and the security had to intervene. After he was pacified by the doctor, telling the nurse to administer some Advent or Cyprexa, that will make the patient fall asleep. And then after the patient fell asleep, I thought deeply about it. And I thank God so much because the protection was still there for me. And I felt every time I would be having that situation, the more I would pray first and say, Lord, this is you helping me out now. Be in control of this patient before anything happens again. And right after that whole moment, he started being aggressive at around I started 7 o'clock in the morning. He started being aggressive at around 8 o'clock. Around 8:30 to 9 o'clock, he fell asleep. And I kept praying because there were times when patients who have dementia, the Ativan or the Cypraxia would no longer be doable for them. It will not work for them anymore. They will still be so aggressive. For that patient, for that big patient, I saw the miracle of God. At 9 o'clock, he fell asleep. I was still watching him from a distance out by the door, and he's in the bed until the 8 hours until 3:30. He never became aggressive. He was waking up once in a while, and was saying a lot of verbalizing a lot of blurry words, but other than that, he never came to me aggressively. He was just in the bed saying, cursing, and then he fell asleep again. And then my shift ended. And right after that, I drove home. I was becoming teary. I said, Lord, thank you for protecting me. I felt your divine hedge of protection. I could have been killed by that guy, being 6'5", being 6'5" in height, and I'm only 5'6". He was like a wrestler. Yeah, thank God. I felt the protection. Yeah. That's one of the hurdles, the challenges we caregivers face at any given day because we do not determine the patient we need to handle. When they come to the emergency room and the doctor will say they need to go up to the hospital side and be admitted, regardless of whatever the medical issue of the patient is, and if that's given to us as part of our assignment, we need to accept it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Every human being deserves care. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. One of the central themes of your book, Eduardo, is your Filipino heritage. Can you talk about how your heritage still plays an active role in your life?
Yeah, John. By always being mindful of the fact that our ancestors, our Filipino ancestors, had already instilled in our Filipino culture that caregiving, especially rendered to the elderly, to the sickly, and to the helpless, is always a godly and heavenly act. And they always tell us God sees you, God knows what you're doing, and it's one way for them to let us know that it pleases God more. Long before even caregiving became a profession in the Philippines or elsewhere, I will see this type of caregiving from my grandparents, my grandmother, grandfather, from my own parents as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. When you talk about your identity as King Jesus Christ's nursing assistant, I know it's the name of the book. Has that title or that name taken on new meaning for you since the publication of the book?
Yes, John, it did in so many ways. As a matter of fact, my circle of friends, after they saw me on YouTube on that first podcast, and after they read the book, they would jokingly call me Bishop Ed, Cardinal Ed, Pope Ed, and I would just laugh together with them. And I would just simply tell them, just call me Brother Ed or Ed. I'm satisfied with that. You see, John, I do not want to project myself as very religious. I'm not. I'm not that very conservative either, or ultra conservative. I am that pastor with a moderate and practical thinking. Just like what I said, in my first podcast, where I was searching for the true meaning of religion in the scriptures. And I figured, in my own personal assessment, never did King Jesus Christ emphasize a very specific name of religion in the Holy Bible. With that, it was not Catholic, it was not Baptist, it was not Presbyterian or whatever. When searching for the true religion in my studies and getting some insights from other pastors, to King Jesus Christ, the true religion for him is found in James, in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 27, and which states, "Your religion is caring for the orphans and widows in their suffering and keeping oneself unstained or unspotted by the world." This particular verse, Bible verse, John, proudly emphasizes our show or acts of being practical in life with sincere compassion and our disengagement from worldly or earthly corruption being the pillars of our faith in God. John, personally, to me, our genuine devotion should be manifested sincerely through assisting, uplifting, and caring for the most helpless, defenseless, and sickly, while at the same time we keep in contact our good morals, our true identity, our humility before the eyes of the living God. There's a gospel song that states like this: "A pure heart is what I long for." And a pure heart, meaning a sincere heart, is what King Jesus Christ looks into our lives. Remember the Pharisees and the Sadducees in the Bible? They were so super, super religious outside, but a bunch of hypocrites on the inside. And that's what God hates as well. He prefers, King Jesus Christ in the Bible preferred to listen to the publicans more than to the prayers of the Pharisees. Remember that part of the Bible?
I think I do. Yes. Wow. What a wonderful life story you've had. And I so glad that you shared it with the world. And I know the readers are as well. As our time winds down, Pastor, any thoughts or prayer that you would like to leave with our listeners today, our viewers? If
Yeah.
there's one thing you'd like to share and have them take away from our discussion today.
Yes, John, and again, thank you so much for this opportunity. John, I believe in giving respect to all types of religious denominations in existence today. And I know that their faith in the God of their respective religions is superbly embedded and ingrained in their hearts and minds. That's my respect for them. My religion, on the other hand, is so simple: caring for the orphans, for the widows, for the helpless, for the defenseless, and for the sickly, with sincerity and seriousness. My message is also simple. It so happened that in my religion, I believe I came to know and understand the name of King Jesus Christ more than ever. More than ever. That's my religion. What he said in James 1:27 is my religion. And that's the message I would like to impart to others. It's not about emphasizing what religion you belong to or you belong in. It's how you practice that religion for God to be glorified.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Eduardo, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you to John.
We've been speaking with Eduardo Advincula, author of King Jesus Christ's Nursing Assistant, a personal and powerful book, I must say. And I encourage all of the viewers to get a copy and learn more about this fascinating individual. Thank you, Eduardo, and thank you all for watching today. This has been the BrightWord Books Podcast.
You've been listening to the BrightWord Books Podcast, home of the literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss future episodes. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.